Dobrý deň. Pozdravujem vás z Bratislavy.
Greetings, everyone. I'd like to welcome you at the press briefing to the conclusion of the Forest Europe conference, which was organized by the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development of the Slovak Republic, together with the German Federal Ministry for Food and Agriculture. The conference was called "The Future We Want, the Forests We Need," and the whole conference was held in an online environment due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The organizational center for this conference has been the capital of Slovak Republic, Bratislava. At this summit of ministers responsible for forests and forestry, we had about 200 participants from 40 European signatory countries, the European Commission, and multiple observer organizations. The priority topic has been the adaptation of forests to the climate change. The main conclusion has been the adoption of two very important ministerial documents, the Bratislava Ministerial Declaration and the Bratislava Ministerial Resolution. More information will be, however, shared by the representatives of the Ministry and the main coordination committee. Allow me to welcome the guests of this committee. The Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development of the Slovak Republic, Mr. Jan Michowski, the Director General for Forests of the German Federal Ministry of Nutrition and Agriculture, Madam Eva Müller, the Minister for Rural Development of Sweden, Jenny Nilsson, and the General Director for Forests of the Ministry of Agriculture and Forest Management in Turkey, Bekir Karajabey. Now I would like to ask the Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development of the Slovak Republic, Mr. Michowski, for opening remarks. Thank you very much, and once again, many thanks for the floor. Ladies and gentlemen, scientists, experts, stakeholders. Perhaps to start with, allow me to condensate the main conclusions of this conference, and we can summarize it in two important themes. The first theme is the main name of this conference, of Forest Europe. This has been perhaps given into the DNA of this conference. The future we want, the forests we need. If you contemplate about this idea, it has several different layers, and it definitely gives us a very telling perspective on forests. I would also like to appreciate one thing, that we had such a high number of participants. So many different signatory countries have taken part. This seems to be a record. And also, we had a very good representation of other states and observer organizations. And together, jointly, we came to a conclusion that forestry is not somewhere on the edge of interest of the debate. Quite the opposite. It's at the very heart of the debate. It's actually what makes the difference between healthy and sustainable living and its opposite for citizens of Europe. Because forests are vital for our future. They are multi-dimensional, and perhaps during this period of pandemic, we could more than ever see how important forests are, that they are an artifact that can significantly benefit the health of all citizens of Europe. A clear proof of this is the fact that the number of visitors in forests, not only in Europe but also here in Slovakia, is remarkable. This is also a historical proof of the fact that forests are vital for our health. And it's only one of the contributions of our forests. At this conference, we have taken a very broad perspective. We have discussed where are we heading and what needs to be done. And I'm very proud on the fact that the conference here in Bratislava had very clear objectives. We managed to bring together a very broad circle of different experts, stakeholders, different perspectives. And this is going to be an important pivotal point, not only in the history of Forest Europe, but also for the whole forestry in Europe. If I was to very shortly summarize the content of our debates, it could be summarized in an equation. The forests are a common denominator of a very broad side of different interests and stakeholders. Let us take a look at the other side of the equation. We can see, on one hand, politicians, not because they are politicians, no, but their duty is first and foremost to pave the way that we will follow. This is the main way of development for the society at large. And politicians at this Bratislava conference of ministers and experts have jointly agreed on the fact that this way needs to be paved and we need to follow it into the future. Then we need to add the foresters as another important denominator. Foresters who have enormous knowledge, wisdom, hundreds of centuries of tradition and knowledge. And the foresters themselves underline the fact that we need to bring the expert value, the expert perspective, and we need to listen to them. Because if they are to do their service, if they are to really be valued members of this discussion, they need to be appreciated, they need to be given value, and we need to listen to them. Very often foresters are somehow under pressure from environmentalists, from protectionists, and they are painted as some people who are working against the forest. But this is quite the opposite. The forests of Europe have been preserved not against the will of the foresters, but thanks to the work of foresters, and they are those who have preserved the forest for us. The third denominator is science and scientists. Forestry is not only the sum of knowledge and experience, but also a sum of scientific know-how, data which have been collected, analyzed, interpreted. And last but not least, another important denominator in this equation, the public. Public is calling for clearer, better forests, more resilient forests, and we can see a public demand for these services. So we really agreed with the public demand that we need to care for the forests better than we did so far. We need to answer this call, and we need to preserve forests, because forests are under tremendous pressure. We see wildfires, floods, windstorms, different types of insects. All of these factors contribute to a high level of risk for forests. We need to take better care of forests, not only for the sake of forests themselves, but for our own sake. Without healthy forests, we will not have healthy Europeans. So we have opened this broad discussion, this debate of common understanding towards healthier forests in the future. And in the end, this is about preserving life in Europe. There were multiple other different elements of the discussion, and I'll leave it to other speakers to comment on them. Not everything in the Bratislava resolution can be summarized in this short debate, but one thing should be emphasized. We have talked a lot about carbon sequestration and greenhouse gases and forests, and we cannot really think about any other important player other than forests in managing greenhouse gases. If we manage to use wood wisely, not burn it, but use it for construction, for reconstructions, for refurbishing Europe, only then we can achieve our objectives in different documents and international covenants and treaties. We need to place carbon into wood, and that is the way how to handle the climate change. And the final remark is one of the important contributions also brought in by Slovakia. That is the question on how to make sure that forests would be nice and would maintain their production capacity. The foresters know the answer. The answer is that we need to manage forests close to the future. We need to listen better to the nature. We need to listen to the forests, what they need, and we know what to do. Now we need to expand this knowledge. We need to make sure that forests will be more varied in terms of their age structure, in terms of the species, and we need to provide better, more resilient forests for the future. Forests that will be not only taken or seen as sources of wood, but as sources of water, of hygiene, of cultural value. All of these things should be perceived equally as important components of forests. If we want to act as an example to the rest of the world, this shouldn't be only the conference of ministers, but the conference of all citizens who hope for a better life, for a healthier life. And who wouldn't like to live a better, healthier life on this small ball known as Earth? And foresters have the key to this quality of life. And I'm really glad that the Bratislava conference has underlined this. Thank you very much. Minister, thank you very much. And now we pass the floor to the German representative. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your really nice words. Forest as the key to life, I really like that. First of all, I would like to start by echoing something that the German Federal Minister Julia Klöckner said in her speech, and that is that Germany is really proud to assume the chairmanship of such an important European-wide process which focuses on forests and sustainable forest management. And as a minister-led process, Forest Europe has been highly influential in the development of European forest policy over the past 30 years, particularly in raising political awareness on the multifunctional role of forests and also promoting cooperation and knowledge exchange between countries on numerous emerging topics that are highly relevant for the conservation and management of forests in Europe. And more specifically, Forest Europe has been instrumental in standard setting on sustainable forest management through decisions and resolutions, and this in the absence of international legal instruments. So also for that reason, Forest Europe has been a very important process. And also it has been instrumental in harmonizing monitoring, assessment, and reporting along commonly understood criteria and indicators for sustainable forest management. Another important point is that Forest Europe is a voluntary process, but of course the decisions by the ministers are negotiated and adopted by consensus, as we have seen now in the signing procedure just today. The two ministerial documents that were signed provide both a solid reference basis for forest policy development all over Europe, and they provide clear guidelines for the chairing country in shaping the work program over the coming time period. One important product of Forest Europe is the State of Europe's Forest Report, which is developed as a joint effort by lead scientists and agencies throughout Europe, and which is based on solid data that comes from national forest inventories. So Forest Europe contributes to an excellent database for policymaking and to transparency and awareness building on the state of European forests and on their management. And I must say that very often the generally positive situation of European forests, especially in relation to forests globally, is often underestimated. Public queries regularly show that a lot of people have a wrong perception of European forests. And therefore, I would really recommend to everybody to look at the nice video on the main messages of the State of European Forests, which really shows that European forests are doing quite well. Now, the panel discussions yesterday and today and the high-level statements delivered have underlined again that forests are in danger because of climate change. But it has also been made clear that forests are part of the solution, and not only the solution to climate change, but also to many of the other sustainable development goals. They are at the heart of the objective of turning to nature-based and nature-friendly solutions and to a bio and circular economy. For us, it is also good to hear that participants from other regions than Europe have confirmed the value of the European approach to sustainable forest management and to multifunctionality, which is at the core of sustainable forest management in Europe. And it is this thinking that will also guide our work as a chairing country to further develop this important process across Europe. Thank you.
Pani generálna riaditeľka, veľmi pekne ďakujeme za informácie.
Madam Director, thank you very much for this information. And now we would like to ask the Swedish delegate to speak. Please, the floor is yours.
No. Thank you. First, I would like to thank my Slovakian colleague for having organized the Ministerial Conference. The Ministerial Conference has been an important possibility to meet and have dedicated, in-depth discussion on forest in Europe. The two topics that we have discussed, climate change adaptation and sustainable forest management, are highly relevant. It has been good to discuss and exchange thoughts and ideas on these very important subjects. The discussion on sustainable development and the role of our forests will continue. This Ministerial Conference has shown that Forest Europe is the voluntary high-level political process for dialogue and cooperation on forest in Europe. Thank you.
Pani ministerka, veľmi pekne ďakujeme.
Madam Minister, thank you very much for this contribution. And finally, the Turkish Republic. The floor is yours, please.
Dear participants, we have successfully and efficiently completed the 8th Ministerial Conference of Forest Europe, which is subtitled "The Future We Want, the Forest We Need." Is aimed to take a political commitment by countries in Europe and the European Union on strategic framework and actions towards sustainable forest management in Europe for this decade. We also know that main purpose of the Forest Europe process is to sign a legally binding agreement. We, as Turkey, have been dedicatedly supporting and contributing this initiative from the first day until now. We've been working since 1990 to reach out where we are today. I would like to state that we've taken one more step further. Forest Europe plays an important role in achieving sustainable management of forests and sustainable development goals. Today, this initiative takes place in the Pan-Europe and Europe region. I hope it will successfully continue not only in Europe, but also in the entire world. My expectation is that the statement of legally binding agreement will be approved and implemented as soon as possible. I would like to send my application to the valuable GCC members, member countries, observers, experts, and invaluable colleagues who has contributed to Forest Europe since the beginning of the process. Before ending my words, I would like to share with you that transforming current International Forest Fire Training Center to International Coordination Center in Turkey has increased our efforts. This effort is important in terms of increasing cooperation and creating synergy in this area. In order to reduce the harmful effects of climate change in the Mediterranean region, looking forward to seeing you back at face-to-face and hoping that overcomes the COVID-19 outbreak soon. Thank you.
Za zaujímavé informácie ďakujeme zástupcom ministerstva.
Thank you very much for very interesting input to the head of the international cooperation. And I have one more technical information. The Minister of Sweden will no longer participate on today's meeting as she has other business to attend to. Question for the Slovak minister. How do you perceive the sustainable forest management along and in the context of the European strategy for biodiversity that has been published last year by the European Commission? Thank you very much for this question. If we have a look at the forest, I think we can agree that there is no better environment for the biodiversity than forest. There is no better place for the biodiversity to take place. It is without any doubt that we have to approach forest from various perspectives. And any intervention that we do as humans in the forest, this may decrease the biodiversity. And I acknowledge that. But this conference seeks to answer this problem because we know that what we call the processes of sustainable forest management and close to nature management are so complex and so fine-tuned towards the nature that they enable biodiversity to thrive even in the forest where there are some production processes ongoing. We are very happy that we have also the requirements for the biodiversity, which require us to manage the forest in a close to nature ways. So we can have also the biodiversity and we can also enable the forest owners to go forth with the production function of the forest. As the question asked about the European Union level and the European strategy for biodiversity, I'm very glad that the European Union has participated as one of the members at our conference. There are member states who have signed this initiative and the Ministerial declaration. And there is no contradiction between the conclusions of the conference and the strategy for biodiversity. We can synergize these processes seamlessly, and this is very important. We have reached the state where we can fully respect the environmental protection and at the same time use the forest for the sake of humanity that is reasonable. Thank you very much, Minister, for the answer. And let's now continue with the question directed at the German representative. So what Germany plans to do in favor of European forests as far as sustainable forest management is concerned?
Thank you for this question. I think we have received very clear guidance from the signatory countries who signed the two resolutions. And so our main task will be to help implement the decisions and contained in these resolutions. But as the German minister said in her statement, we also have a couple of priorities, and she mentioned three. One is the whole concept of sustainable forest management. Forest Europe is a platform for defining and further developing the concept of sustainable forest management. You may remember that this concept was first developed 300 years ago, and it has evolved a lot during this time. And it will continue evolving. We have now new challenges that didn't exist before. I just want to name climate change again, and also the worldwide loss of biodiversity. And those are things that have to be more strongly integrated into the concept of sustainable forest management. So we're going to be looking at this and help evolve this concept further. A second point the minister made is that in order to ensure sustainable forest management in Europe, not only now, but also in the future, we need to make sure that we have, or continue to have, a skilled and well-educated workforce at all levels. And I'm saying this because also forestry education has to be adapted to the new challenges as the concept and the practice of sustainable forest management evolves. So we will be working on promoting green jobs in forestry and promoting more modern forestry education that is adapted to today's needs at all levels. And the third point is the forest risk knowledge mechanism. We believe that transboundary cooperation on forest disturbance risk management is needed to improve the ability of all European countries to cope with the increasing and intensifying disturbance events and the necessary forest restoration following such events. We have all experienced in the past years drought, we have experienced storms, we've had serious insect attacks, we have a lot of damage in our forests, and we believe that we need to have a mechanism that allows us to react faster and find responses faster and better responses. So in implementing the Bratislava resolution, the German chair will work towards establishing such a pan-European risk facility. And we as chair, we would also be offering our location in Bonn as a location for this future risk facility. Thank you.
Veľmi pekne ďakujeme, pani generálna riaditeľka.
Thank you very much, General Director, for answering this question. Now, there is a question for the representative of Turkey. Forests in southern Europe are massively influenced by the climate change. Are there any lessons from this region that can be taken on board by the remaining European countries?
Thank you for the question. The climate change impacts can be more severe in the southern part of Europe, as the region is characterized by Mediterranean climate. The Mediterranean climate is already defined as very hot summer periods that water deficit can reach to very significant levels. This affects evapotranspiration conditions and clean water availability of ecosystems. In the region, the ecosystems are connected with people because a large population depends on natural resources, including forests and rivers. Rich biodiversity occurred in southern Europe compared to inland and northern countries of Europe. It's obviously under negative effect of climate change, urging adaptive management system to safeguard specificity, fragile forest ecosystems. Since forest fragmentation disturbing and even harming the plant population and wildlife beyond in the pest and disease storms. Drought and forest fires is still one of the major impacts due to particularly industrialization, new settlements, and infrastructure. It is contributed by mismanagement actions, which come with climate change. Furthermore, the southern region, including our country, Turkey, are the touristic parts of Europe, and the tourism depends on ecosystems, agriculture, good comfort and weather conditions. But above all, it depends on people. Considering forest ecosystem health and vitality, mixed forest rather than one tree species dominates stands, clearly observed in Northern Europe in the context of climate change adaptation. Integrated pest and disease management, forest fire management, or other integral tools of sustainable forest management would not be only a solution in the climate change mitigation and adaptation efforts, unless monitoring and assessment systems of climate change affecting natural assist, considering landscape, scale and close contour forest management to drive strategic and tactic plan in a holistic approach and concerted manner, provide the required scientific data and information to convince decision makers in funding preventive measures. Thank you.
Ďakujeme hosťom za všetky informácie.
We would like to thank the guests for all the information and for answering all the questions. I would like to thank all the media for their interest. We have now reached the end of the conference and we'd like to bid our farewell from Slovakia. Goodbye.